Good evening, everyone. My name is Yoel Culiner, and I directed the movie that you just watched 3 hours ago with Carlotta and Juanjo, Schloss Weißenborn. I've been asked by Pia Pretorius to tell a bit about me, about us, about our work at Culiner Creative Circle, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm happy to tell our story. Both Elisabeth and I are formerly classical musicians and flutists. In fact, we had, you could say, the normal upbringing of a classical musician, including concerts, competitions, auditions, like many others. Elisabeth is from Münster, but she studied flute in Dresden mostly, before moving to Copenhagen. And I myself was born in Jerusalem, but lived many years in Tel Aviv, where I also studied for my bachelor's, also before moving to Copenhagen. Elisabeth and I met in Copenhagen, where we both completed our bachelor's degree before moving to Israel together. In 2012, that was the year when I won the audition at the Israel Symphony Orchestra, which is also the Israeli opera, as associate principal flute. I worked in the Israel Symphony for 4 years before I decided to leave and pursue a new career full-time as a producer of recordings for classical musicians. I do remember 2013 as a very happy time after winning the audition. In fact, that was, you could say, my lifelong dream of working in an orchestra in a principal position. This was really a fantastic moment which in so many ways shaped who I am now as a professional. I learned so much because playing in an orchestra is just very different. You work with alternating conductors, alternating soloists, and all the time you have to adapt yourself to different circumstances. You have to work together with many others. You have to learn to take orders, one might say. That is just the normal hierarchy of an orchestra. I learned a lot from that, I really did. But it didn't fit me on the long term. I always had this feeling that I have to work for myself. I need to bring something which is mine. I need people to hear my voice. Playing in an orchestra, yes, people hear your voice, but you're always obliged to compromise on your creativity to a certain degree in order to fit the constellation of an orchestra, in order to fit yourself in this figure of working with another 80 people. You're not alone. 2 years into my contract with the orchestra, a colleague of mine at the time, who was also the director, the headmaster of the Hochschule in Tel Aviv. Well, I knew him quite well because we played together quite a lot of chamber music. And he knew also that I had some background with sound recordings, and he knew that I had some knowledge in the field of recordings. So actually he came to me in 2015 and told me, listen, in Israel, we don't really have someone who specializes in recording concerts. Maybe you should consider doing that because I think, he told me, I think that will really fit you. I said, well, that's an interesting idea, but that's completely absurd. I'm a flutist. I don't know anything about recordings really. He said, you know what, but just think about it, because if you do it, I have a hunch that you'll be quite successful in it. I said, sure, thanks for the tip. I'll think about it. Thank you. The bottom line is that I did think about it, and I was curious about what he said. So I decided to go and buy a professional video camera and try to understand what this is, what this world is, something that was almost completely unknown to me before. Anyways, long story short, a short while afterwards, maybe a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, I'm getting a phone call from a conductor which I also knew from the Israel Philharmonic, playing with him actually. So he was a principal viola of the orchestra, who also worked as a conductor. So he was conducting one of the programs of the orchestra. And he tells me, on this date, it was April 2015, on this date, I have a concert with the orchestra and I would like you to film it because I've heard that you're getting into video recordings. I said, well, getting into recordings is maybe a bit too much, but I did buy a video camera and I'm curious about this. He said, you know what, I trust you because I know you and I want you to film my concert. Okay, I said, sure. So I was having this one video camera and I said, okay, if I'm doing this, I should do it properly. So not long afterwards, I flew to Berlin actually, where we live currently. And I bought these other 2 cameras of the same model because this model did not exist in Israel. So now I have 3 cameras. I said, okay, now I'm good to do this job. I flew back to Israel. I went together with Elisabeth to the concert hall and we filmed this concert. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were guessing a lot, we were experimenting a lot. We were very nervous, I remember. Suddenly filming in this huge hall of nearly 4,000 people, the most famous orchestra in the country. Many people know and were acquainted with, and there was, in a way, there was a lot of responsibility to make this happen good. I remember going back home with Elisabeth and both our hearts were beating crazy speed because we said there's no room to mess this up. This has to turn out well. And we were looking at the material on the computer and it turned out really good, relatively speaking, of course, for the time. And then I was reflecting back the next few days about this whole project and I realized, you know what, this was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun and maybe the best part of it is that no one told me or us what needs to be done and how to do it, and we were given basically complete creative freedom. And this really, I can speak for myself, but this was really nice. It was a nice experience to create this product that will last forever in theory. And the conductor is happy, the orchestra is happy, we're happy, and we're even getting paid for it. I mean, it was a perfect formula. Long story short, this was the beginning of the journey. This was, again, 2015. And we lived in Israel until 2019. And within this time frame, I was counting the amount of productions that we did over the course of time and was above 1,000 productions. So we did a lot. We traveled all over the country with all the orchestras, all the ensembles, all the festivals. We were basically almost the only ones doing this kind of work. And we gained so much experience while producing all these recordings. I believe that the tipping point, so the year where we really took off was 2018, which was when we started working closely with Israel Philharmonic. Again, which was the biggest orchestra and the biggest classical music institution in the country. And we were working with Zubin Mehta, which was the musical director of the orchestra. We were working with Nozeda. We were working with Kent Nagano, with Lahav Shani, who is now the current music director of the orchestra, Marta Agerich, Andras Schiff, etc., etc. So the greatest artists that you also see in Germany, in the big orchestras and around the world, obviously. And we came in contact with all these amazing artists from behind the scenes. So we were experiencing this world differently, not as musicians, but as I hope to say artists, but with a different viewing angle to the process. Now, we learned a lot, and we took this experience of both us being musicians, being behind the lenses, and also positioned in many times in the audiences. So we were having all these elements which we were familiar with, and we managed to combine these elements into one, let's call it product for argument's sake. And pardon my lack of modesty, but I think that this is what really specializes us, is the fact that we know all the components of how the musicians are feeling, how the soloist is feeling. We've been soloists, but now we know how they're feeling, and we know what pressure they're under, especially when it's recorded, when there's a microphone next to them, when there's a camera next to them. So we can relate to these different aspects of the concert recording production. And having the sensitivity for that is what I believe is our strength. All this time, I was still working in the orchestra, and it was only in 2017 when I decided that I cannot continue living this double life, because our business in recordings became completely full-time, and I was working full-time in the orchestra, and basically I had to make a decision. I had to choose a path. Do I want to continue being a flutist in the orchestra, or do I want to pursue this new path? And it was in 2017, after I took a leave of a half a year from the orchestra, that I decided to hand in my resignation. And I remember walking into the office of the chef of the orchestra and telling him, you know what, Ophel, I've decided to leave the orchestra. Thank you for the time. It was an honor. It was a pleasure to work here and to make music and play the greatest operas with some of the greatest conductors in the world. But I have made a decision that I will continue as a self-employed person. And he actually told me, you know what, Yoel, this is the right decision. You're actually doing the right thing for you. Some people are meant to be employed. Some people are meant to sit in an orchestra. And some people are meant to be free birds, to really let the creativity control them, in fact. And you are one of those people who should be his own master. So that was a nice ending, instead of saying goodbye. But he actually gave me a present to go with. And I remember leaving the office and stepping outside. It was a nice spring or summer day. And I remember this feeling of freedom. Now I'm my own master and I have to make things happen for us. I was sitting in a cafe right afterwards, looking in the sky and just enjoying this sense of freedom. Not because I want to say anything bad about working in an orchestra, not at all, but I just personally, it was really great for me personally. And the funny thing is that since the day when I resigned, when I gave this resignation letter, that was the last day I played music. I actually never really opened the flute again, other than just 2-3 times just for fun to play at home. But I stopped playing overnight. I stopped practicing it. I made a cut. I started a new path completely, almost black and white. In 2018, Elisabeth and I went on vacation this summer in Germany, actually, in Oberstdorf, in the southern part of the country, on the border with Austria. And we were walking around and just hiking. And then I had this crazy idea to move to Germany. And I told Elisabeth, let's do this. I mean, let's just move. I mean, it seems just much, I don't know if nicer is the right definition, but something very fitting for us. Maybe more quiet, more breathing space. Something felt right about considering moving to Germany. She's terrible with changes. So she told me, you're crazy. No, we have everything going for us in Israel and it's going great and everything is great. We shouldn't do that. I said, no, really, think about it. Let's consider this. And after a few days, we together decided, yeah, this is a good idea. But we're not going to do it immediately. We're going to wait a bit. We're going to prepare. So in fact, we did wait nearly a year, where in this year, we started arranging our lives. We started preparing ourselves to close the business. Elisabeth was pregnant at the time. So that also made things a bit more complicated. But the bottom line is in the summer of 2019, we moved with our 6-month-year-old baby. We packed everything and we just shipped everything to Berlin and moved to live in Prenzlauer Berg. Moving to Germany was a big risk. It was a big risk because when we lived in Israel, this is a small country of a total of 9 million people. And it's just a small pond. So everyone knows everyone. The word spreads a lot. And then suddenly we arrive in this country, which is above 80 million people. No one knows us. This was really risky in terms of well, we didn't have any guarantee that things will work fine. What we did have was a great portfolio. So we, in all the time before, we worked with some major labels, some big festivals, big channels such as Mezzo and Medici TV. So we did have something to show. We had a nice resume to use to our benefit. But the fact is that we didn't have anything guaranteed in Germany other than just a few jobs that from people that already knew us or have heard that we're coming to Germany. But the bottom line is that most of the time we were just trying to build this new business in a foreign country. Even though Elisabeth is German, it was still foreign for her after so many years not living in this country. In February 2020, that was the tipping point when things really started to go well for us. We were recording a concert with Martha Agech and Guy Braunstein, who was the former concertmaster of the Berlin Philharmonic. And this concert was in Boulet's Saal. So this was a pretty big deal. And what made it special was that it was one of the very last concerts, major concerts, right before the pandemic. So symbolically, there was something quite important about this. In the end, it was a great success, and this recording went basically broadcasted all over the world, so all the way to Japan, to the States, on international airplanes, on the small screens on the seats. It was distributed worldwide by EuroArts, which is a fantastic publishing company. And that was when we got recognition in Germany as a respectable production company. Later, we started working in Elbphilharmonie, Hamburg, and in major halls and with other major artists from Germany and abroad. And that's when things really started working. But at the same time also, Corona started and then all the lockdowns began. Now, once the lockdowns began, that was a moment where Elisabeth and I were sitting on the sofa in our apartment, and we were looking at each other in some sort of desperation of what are we doing now? No more concerts. Everything is going to a halt, and this is exactly when things are actually starting to go really well for us. I don't want to say we were in panic, but we were in some sort of overdrive shock of we have to fix the situation somehow. We have to survive financially, like many musicians and artists who had a hard time. And us being us, used our brains to find a solution for this situation, because in every crisis there's always a solution to a crisis. There's always a positive light in the tunnel. There's always something to do. And we decided to adapt ourselves to the situation. So okay, there's no concert halls, but there's still musicians. They're still here. And some of them either have a piano at home or don't need a piano at home because they play on a different instrument. So we decided to record people at their homes with full programs. So these were programs of 45 minutes, an hour. Record them professionally, not with a mobile phone, but do it really with respect in their homes. This was before Daniel Hope did it, Hope at Home. So I do credit us for being one of the first ones who actually did professional recordings at home. So in order to not just put these recordings on YouTube, we started a platform called Closer. The concept of the platform was to bring these recordings of the musicians online, but not to give them for free, because musicians shouldn't be working for free. The idea was that we sell tickets for 10 euros, so people can watch the concert, they have to pay 10 euros, and then we split 50-50. So we get 50% of the ticket sales so that we can continue and produce these concerts, and the other 50% goes to the musicians so they can make some money, because otherwise, no concerts, right? So they need a source of income. And this created a lot of movement, and many people heard about this, and we were receiving many phone calls and emails from musicians asking us, can we also be part of this project? We were even receiving phone calls from other countries from musicians, even though we couldn't travel there because of Corona. But there was a lot of movement. Many people knew about this, and in the end, I think we came up with about 20 concerts, and this was just a great experience. In fact, many concert halls told us, please do it in our concert halls, and we'll give you the place for free, because otherwise it's just standing empty. So let's do something good. So not only did we have concerts at home, we also had in beautiful venues in Berlin mostly. So all of this was just a nice collaboration between institutions, between musicians and us, and it was a nice experience. At one point, RBB Kultur was interested, and we had an interview with them, and there was it was really positive. Following that, one day I'm getting a call from a nice lady. Her name is Pia Pretorius. She tells me about Schloss Weißenborn and what a wonderful location this is, and how much they encourage working with musicians, especially on period instruments, and how much she loves it, and the nature around. And she called me because one of the singers we were working with as part of Closer was someone that she had in her activities at Schloss Weißenborn. And she said she just enjoyed this so much, and she would like to work with us. So she started a project which was the Artist in Residence program, where she invites musicians to the Schloss, and they have all the facilities needed in order to make beautiful music. And she would like us to come to film the concert which concludes the stay of the artists at the Schloss. I said, you know what, this is a great idea, let's do it. And since then, I personally have been visiting Pia at the Schloss on a regular basis. And we've now, recorded, I think, 7 programs as part of this program. So it started as a lead duo program. And then this year, the program was concentrated on Baroque harp. It was really nice. And just coming to Schloss Weißenborn is always nice, because just the setting is so nice, and staying at the guest house, which is just luxury. It's a colorful place to be, and it's also leaving the city is nice. And now we are in February 2022, and it seems at least that this whole Corona saga is starting to be behind us. But on the positive side of this crisis was that some good collaborations came out, and we got to know many people, and among them was Pia Pretorius. So there's always a positive outlook to things, because otherwise maybe these connections wouldn't have been formed. So this was definitely a good part to all of this. So thank you for listening to my story in a short period of time, and thank you.